Have you ever noticed that some of the kindest people you've ever met are also the most tired? They're the ones who always show up, who always smile, who always say yes when someone asks for help. But if you look closely, really closely, you can see it, the exhaustion in their eyes. You can feel that behind all that kindness, there's something deeper, something heavier, maybe even something darker. We like to imagine kindness as something pure, simple, and good. We tell children to be kind. We admire kindness in leaders. We measure our own humanity by how much compassion we can show. But like everything else in this complex world, kindness has a shadow. And when we ignore that shadow, when we pretend it doesn't exist, kindness can become something destructive. It starts small. A child learns that being kind earns them love. When they put aside their own needs to make others comfortable, they're rewarded with smiles, praise, maybe even affection they wouldn't have received otherwise. Over time, that connection buries itself deep inside their nervous system. Kindness becomes survival. And as they grow up, they can no longer tell where their real self ends and where others' expectations begin. They become the reliable one, the good one, the friend who never complains. But here's the truth. When kindness is driven by fear of rejection or a desperate need to feel valued, it stops being kindness. It becomes a mask, and masks, when worn too long, suffocate the person beneath them. Think about the kind people you know. They'll listen to your problems for hours. They'll lend money they don't have. They'll sacrifice their rest just to make sure you're okay. At first, it seems admirable, almost saintly, but if you've ever been that person, you know the truth. Behind every act of self-sacrifice lives a quiet resentment, a voice that whispers, "What about me?" Yet that voice is silenced, because kindness, especially chronic kindness, comes with an unspoken rule. You're not allowed to put yourself first. Psychologists call this compassion fatigue, when someone gives so much of their empathy and care that they eventually run empty. Healthcare workers experience it, teachers experience it, parents experience it, but it's not just about jobs. Everyday people who identify as kind souls are at risk too. Studies show that those who constantly prioritize others over themselves experience higher rates of anxiety, depression, and even physical illness. Kindness, when unchecked, becomes self-erasure, and that's the dark side. Kindness without boundaries isn't kindness at all. It's a slow form of self-destruction. It's like watering every plant in the garden except your own roots. Eventually, the gardener collapses and the whole garden withers. But here's the unsettling part. Sometimes kindness itself becomes a weapon. Not in a manipulative way, but in a quiet, unconscious one. When you're known as the kind one, people start to expect it. They shape their behavior around it. Without realizing it, your kindness teaches others that your needs are secondary, that your feelings are negotiable. Over time, they stop even asking what you want because they assume you'll adjust. And the kinder you are, the more invisible you become. But invisibility isn't peace. It's loneliness dressed up as politeness. Now, that doesn't mean kindness is bad, far from it. Genuine kindness is one of the most beautiful forces in the world. But there's a difference between kindness that flows from abundance and kindness that bleeds from emptiness. One heals, the other corrodes. Research supports this. A study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people who struggle to say no are significantly more likely to experience burnout. Another study from UC Berkeley showed that altruism increases happiness, but only when it's voluntary and authentic. When kindness comes from guilt, fear, or obligation, it actually lowers happiness and increases stress. And yet, so many of us stay trapped in the cycle. We don't want to disappoint anyone, so we say yes. We don't want to seem selfish, so we keep giving. We don't want to lose love, so we keep sacrificing. But the cost of endless kindness is enormous. You slowly lose yourself. You forget what you even want, because your identity has been built around serving others. You become a stranger to your own soul. And that's where the monster within begins to grow. Because when you suppress your needs, when you bury your anger, when you silence your truth in the name of kindness, those feelings don't vanish. They ferment, they build pressure, and eventually they explode through resentment, bitterness, or outbursts that leave you shocked at your own reflection. We like to think kindness protects us from darkness, but in truth, kindness without honesty creates darkness. Every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you smile when you want to cry, you're not being kind, you're abandoning yourself. And self-abandonment always has consequences. So why do we do this? Because we've been taught that kindness equals worthiness, that being agreeable is safer than being authentic, that love is something we earn through service, not something we deserve by being ourselves. Children who grow up in homes where love is conditional, where affection depends on obedience or self-sacrifice, carry that belief into adulthood. They become adults who confuse people-pleasing with kindness, but true kindness doesn't erase the self, it includes it. If your kindness costs your mental health, your energy, or your joy, then it's no longer kindness. It's self-neglect disguised as virtue. Neuroscience even backs this up. Our brains have mirror neurons, cells that let us feel others' emotions. That's why kindness feels natural. We're wired for empathy. But those same neurons don't know when to stop. If you constantly absorb others' pain without boundaries, your brain floods with stress. Over time, you burn out emotionally, mentally, physically. Your brain wasn't built for endless giving. It was built for balanced connection. So the dark side of kindness isn't that kindness is wrong. It's that kindness can be twisted by fear, by trauma, by conditioning, into something that looks noble, but slowly destroys us from within. If you've ever felt that exhaustion, that quiet resentment, that invisible ache beneath your smile, you're not broken, you're human. You're just living in a world that never taught you how to protect your own heart while keeping it open. So how do we fix this? How do we remain kind without losing ourselves? It begins with one uncomfortable truth. Kindness must start with you, not in a selfish way, but in a real, grounded, sustainable way. If your kindness doesn't include yourself, it's not kindness, it's performance. And performances always collapse. Think of airplane safety instructions. Put your oxygen mask on first before helping others. It feels wrong, but if you pass out, you can't help anyone. The same goes for kindness. If you neglect your own well-being, your ability to care for others eventually suffocates. This is where boundaries come in. For many kind people, boundaries feel terrifying, like rejection or selfishness. But boundaries are not walls. They are the purest form of honesty. A boundary says, this is what I can give and this is what I cannot. It says, my love is real, but it cannot exist if I'm empty. It says, I care enough to be truthful about my limits. Healthy boundaries make relationships clearer, deeper, and more respectful. In fact, research shows that people with strong boundaries have stronger relationships because their kindness is authentic, not forced. When they say yes, they mean it, and that authenticity is magnetic. Setting boundaries isn't just about saying no to others, it's about saying yes to yourself. And that can be uncomfortable, especially if your self-worth has always been tied to giving. You might lose relationships. Some people may call you selfish, but those who leave were only attached to your compliance, not your kindness. Psychologists call this pathological altruism, when the desire to help causes harm, when constant rescuing prevents others from growing, or when endless giving destroys the giver. It looks like kindness, but it creates guilt, dependency, and exhaustion. And that ties into an even deeper myth, the myth of the good person. From childhood, we're told that good people don't complain. Good people don't say no. Good people never disrupt the peace. But real goodness isn't about being quiet. It's about being whole. It's about showing up fully, honestly, and still choosing compassion. Because kindness that comes from fear enslaves you. Kindness that comes from authenticity frees you. So how do we practice this freedom? Pause before you say yes. Ask yourself, do I have the energy? Do I really want to do this? Learn the gentle number. I care about you, but I can't take this on right now. I'd love to help, but I don't have the capacity. A kind no is still kindness. Redefine your worth. You're valuable even when you're resting, even when you're not helping. Nurture yourself. Fill your own garden before tending to others. Honor your emotions. Anger and sadness are not enemies. They are signals telling you where your boundaries belong. For many people, kindness becomes a mask. A smile to hide the exhaustion, a yes to avoid conflict. But masks are heavy. And the longer you wear one, the harder it becomes to remember your real face. The goal isn't to stop being kind, it's to let your kindness come from your true self. The self that can say both yes and no with honesty. The self that is kind without disappearing. Because true kindness doesn't mean self-erasure, it means truth. So the next time someone says, "You're so kind," ask yourself, is this kindness coming from fear or from freedom? From exhaustion or from abundance? From the mask or from the real me? Because the real monster inside kind people isn't anger or boundaries, it's self-neglect. And when you face it, when you finally put the mask down, your kindness doesn't fade. It becomes stronger, clearer, more radiant. It becomes the kind of kindness that not only keeps others alive, but keeps you alive too,